Farms, it's Paul Ward, and welcome to another On the Road. Well, homelessness is a topic that's getting a lot of attention lately. Now, how to solve the problem? That's a big question. Our next guest seems to have some of the answers, and we're so glad to have him today. Dan Parziale, welcome to On the Road.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And we are at a new location in Ojai, California called Mesa that you helped formulate.
So Mesa was founded in 2020. End of 2020, we received funding in 2022 to purchase a 10-acre farm on the east end of Ojai. And in 2024, we welcomed our first participants to a transitional housing community that's serving 18 to 24-year-olds previously experiencing homelessness in Ventura County.
And you built 10 plus tiny homes in the middle of a citrus orchard.
Yeah, so we added 10 tiny homes. There was an existing farmhouse. So currently we have 12 units, providing services to 13 young adults with on-site case management, on-site clinical psychologist, all holistic approach. We're looking at everything from, mental health and wellness, job training, school, community building, you name it.
So these 18 to 24-year-olds, were they homeless or were they kind of on their way to being homeless or a
combination? Yeah. So I would say maybe half were literally homeless, right? Experiencing homelessness, either, living in a tent, car, emergency shelter. The other half maybe were at high risk, meaning, within the next 30 days, they were going to be on the street because they were aging out of foster care, because they were being exited from a juvenile justice system, because a program that they were a part of was ending, and they didn't have a place to go.
Did they apply to live here, or did you kind of reach out to different organizations to find them? How does that
So all the referrals come from Ventura County agencies that are members of what is called the Continuum of Care. So every county in the country has a continuum of care that oversees all homeless operations. All these referrals were made by members of that organization within Ventura County.
And I read that you have a spirit of connection and collaboration. That's kind of interesting. I never really thought about that for kind of the homeless.
Yeah. So I think, really trying to rethink the way that we approach this issue beginning to end, right? So starting with, the population itself, right? Trying to move upstream, work with folks who are most likely to spend their life on and off the street. Okay, let's intervene at this critical juncture of life, right? So that's one kind of differentiator. Another would be the amount of time we have. We have up to 24 months. So, young adults who move to Mesa have up to 24 months or until their 25th birthday before they move on. Obviously, we're trying to move as quickly as we can, as is reasonable, but it gives us a lot of time to build a foundation, right? And, another aspect of this is that this is a really beautiful place.
It's a beautiful spot.
Right. And it's an inviting place. And it's a space where we're bringing in community members. Just today, right? We have 40 Keller Williams realtors out here working. 2 weeks ago, we had 40 or 50 community members that were here. The idea is, hey, we love to talk about how it takes a village to raise a child. Right? These are the kids, right? These are the young adults that need a community to help create opportunity. We're not doing our job if we try to keep everything in-house. We should be bringing in the skills and enthusiasm, energy of our community members to help bring opportunity.
And they each have their own tiny home, right?
That's right.
And then I would imagine there's certain activities that they are encouraged to participate in or required to participate in? How does that, you have professionals that come in and work with them?
Yeah, so very little that's required. Required is you're meeting with your case manager once a week to update on the goals that you're setting for yourself, right? We're not setting your goals for you. What do you want in your life? And then one house meeting a week where we come together and update on opportunities, et cetera. But today we have Karen Yadaya, a filmmaker who's teaching about the art of cinema, helped screenwriting, script writing, etc. They're getting together today to start filming. And so participants who are interested went through a 6-week course where they're learning about camera work and script writing and lighting and directing and acting. And now one of our participants wrote a script about a part of his life, and they're going to act it out and film it, right? And this afternoon, they're meeting with local natural builder, Sage Stoneman. They're using materials from here on the farm to build a pizza oven. And they've been doing that for the last maybe month or so. So opportunities to get engaged, right? We are creating a space that feels more like a live work space than it does a shelter. Participants are out picking pixie tangerines and selling them to Farm Cart that gets local organic produce into the schools, and they're getting paid directly by Farm Cart to do that work. So, these things are happening all the time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, it's an interesting concept because, you are in a beautiful location. You're not in some kind of high-rise homeless encampment where everybody's just kind of shuffled in and forgotten. You're rehabilitating these folks and offering them opportunities that they would otherwise not have. Have you graduated your first, class yet, so to speak?
I think that for long enough, we set up environments to serve people who are low income, struggling, homeless, etc. They're in the worst parts of town, right? With the freeway running through their front yard, no schools or rough schools, no supermarkets, the jail, right?
Right.
And we expect people to do well in that environment. That's nuts. Like that doesn't make any sense.
That's failure.
Right.
Yeah.
My take on all this is, right, we should be building the most beautiful spaces we can. We should be building environments that anyone would want to live in, where everyone can come on site and go, oh, I could live here. I would want to live here. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's rejuvenating. Right. I think we're most likely to see positive results if we're putting in the right ingredients. And so I think we've got a lot to learn from that approach. And I would argue for that, across the board.
So have you had a graduating class yet? I mean, you started in 2023. Have folks moved off yet and kind of working in the real world?
You've had 3 folks move off for various reasons. We're working with some young adults that have been in the system their whole life, right? Either the foster system or whatever. And so I think there are times when they see an opportunity to go and move into their own place, and they're going to jump on it. It's our job to try and help motivate to make that decision when the right thing comes along. But, these are adults that are going to make their own choices too, right? We do provide rental assistance to help with that transition, and can continue to assist for up to a year after they've moved off. So we're, still working with those folks.
How did Mesa come to be? I mean, it's such a, I don't want to say it's a unique concept, but then it kind of is.
Yeah.
A beautiful spot, 10 tiny homes and a citrus orchard and, lovely Ojai.
Yeah, definitely elements of it that are pretty unique. I grew up here in Ojai, lived in LA for 15 years or so, spent the last 7 years working with LA Family Housing, a really large homeless services nonprofit in LA. When I moved back to Ojai, the motivation was to keep people from becoming homeless to begin with, right? How do we move upstream and intervene early enough where we have a lot of options for intervention, right? And so Kyle Thompson, co-founder of Mesa, and I built out this vision with an idea of kind of upsetting maybe the current approach and really trying to invest in prevention, and to create a space that's unbelievably beautiful, right? And inviting and inclusive and has got arms wide open, right? I think that for a long time, we've taken the folks in our communities that need the most help, and we build affordable housing, for example, in the roughest parts of our communities, near the freeway, without grocery stores or, near the prison or whatever.
Right.
And then we're confused as to why people have a hard time pulling themselves out of poverty. We see it in our hospitals. We don't feed people in our hospitals good food. And then we wonder why people don't recover as quickly as they might otherwise. So, we're flipping that on its head, right? How do we create spaces that are incredibly inviting, restorative, peaceful? These tiny homes are gorgeous, nice furniture, beautiful spaces. We're on an incredible farm on the east end of Ojai with a 180-degree view of the mountains. It's an incredible place to be, and I think that it gives our participants the best opportunity to heal and launch for the rest of their lives.
Right. When you created the vision with your partner, what was kind of the next step? How did you get the funding? Is it government funding? Is it grants? Where did the funds come from?
Yeah. So we were founded in 2020. We started working on a statewide grant called Home Key in 2021 in collaboration with Ventura County. That was roughly $6.5 million from the state and county, and that allowed us to purchase the property. Currently, our budget is split, kind of competitive government grants and private philanthropy.
And I imagine that this model could be replicated in other places.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking at properties right now around Ventura County. Our goal is to end youth homelessness, right? So we're not going to do that with 12 units. We've got, somewhere in the 300 to 400 young adults who are experiencing homelessness in Ventura County right now. We need more units. So that's our goal, and we are absolutely looking to expand. We don't need a 10-acre farm to do this work. I think, Mesa is more of an approach than it is a specific place. And so we can replicate this anywhere, and we can partner, right? We can work with other nonprofits that have a similar vision or mission and partner with them to make it happen too.
How did you think of the name Mesa? Is it kind of up on a plateau looking out of the view?
Yeah.
What was that?
So there are kind of two visions, right? So one is Mesa, table in Spanish, right? So creating a space where everyone has a seat, where you can come to get nourishment and build community, where you can bring stuff to share, whether that's food, drink, or just, yourself. And then the other idea is, right, this Mesa, this plateau, this safe, stable place to look out at your future and plan for where you're headed.
And Dan, what's your background? You said you grew up in Ojai, and then you went to the belly of the beast. You went to LA for a while and decided to come back home?
Yeah. So went to Notre Dame for my undergrad, and then came back to LA and did a variety of things. So I taught as a teacher, a high school teacher. I did organizing work with the United Farm Workers. I started law school, then didn't finish law school, did some immigration work, and then worked for a small nonprofit called Aid Still Required, doing international redevelopment work, mostly in Haiti. At that time, I went back to Notre Dame and got my master's in nonprofit administration. And that's when I transitioned into homeless services.
How do you prevent people from becoming homeless?
So good question. And I think there's a little bit of maybe there could be some confusion because a lot of the participants that we're working with were experiencing homelessness, right? So when we're talking about preventing homelessness, we're talking about preventing chronic long-term homelessness. So we're identifying young folks who are at high risk because they're coming out of a system where the data would show that there's high risk. So kids coming out of the foster system, coming out of the justice system, for example. Number one predictor of homelessness is housing insecurity as a child. So we can look at young adults whose families experienced homelessness or housing instability, moved around a ton as a kid.
Living in the car, then maybe have an apartment for a little while.
Yep. Doubling up with other families. Maybe they were in a homeless shelter for a little while. So that's really where our target is. And, like I said, Mesa is mostly serving kids who were literally homeless prior to moving into Mesa. So give a quick example. We have a young man who's, living at Mesa right now. He was homeless on the street for 2.5 years prior to moving here, living in a tent. So here's a young man who was very likely to spend the rest of his life on the street in some capacity without a major intervention. Within just a handful of months, he was seeing a therapist for the first time in his life, had received a mental health diagnosis and was receiving medication for that. He had gotten a job. He was looking at enrolling in school, right? So relatively quickly, seeing massive changes in this guy's life. I would go almost as far as to say that if we had waited 5 years or 10 years, right, where he was so sick that he was being prioritized for something like permanent supportive housing, it would have been over.
Right. No chance of
it would have
rehabilitation.
been very difficult. It would have taken a long time and taken a ton of resources. Right now, we're spending, let's say, $50,000 to $70,000 per year per person on the street. Okay, that's emergency food, medicine, police, sanitation, etc. Right? We're spending about that amount of money here, providing them with this.
Right.
So we're going to spend the money one way or the other. Are we going to put the work in to prevent long-term homelessness and provide an opportunity for a kid to dream about what kind of life they want to live? Or are we going to keep someone alive on the street and then ultimately intervene with an incredibly expensive housing option and lose the opportunity to live the life that they may have otherwise imagined for themselves?
The homeless problem in general is just kind of massive, isn't it? I mean, you're kind of, if you get them young, right, you can.
Look, I mean, we know that early intervention and prevention works. We know that in education. We know that in healthcare. So why wouldn't that work in social services? Why wouldn't that work in homelessness? I think that there's a political reason for it. It's challenging, right? When we see people on the street, that's where we want to put our energy. What we've seen is that if we don't slow down the inflow, we cannot house people fast enough. And it's incredibly expensive. And so we've got to be doing both. We must be investing more of our total pot in prevention.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And I think, ultimately too, if I asked you to, give me 5 words to describe homelessness, right? It's scary. It's divisive. It's expensive. It's confusing, right? It divides communities into those that are, maybe a NIMBY versus saying like, no, like we've got to support our neighbors.
Right.
Our approach is the opposite of that, right? It's exciting. It's new. It's beautiful. It's engaging. It's community building. We had basically no pushback on this project, right? We worked really hard to get out there and meet with folks. And I think now the job is that we have to fulfill on that promise and do good work, obviously. I think that this is the kind of work that a lot of people can get behind.
Mm-hmm. And you've got different organizations coming to volunteer. Today you had 40 realtors gardening and, weeding and mulching, and other organizations come periodically, and there's ways that others can support too, right?
Absolutely.
Ways folks can support Mesa?
Yeah, we've got folks that are plugging in all over the place. They're gardening, they're cooking, they're doing art classes. This is not something that we can do alone, nor should we.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a community, and so, and I think that one of the things that I've talked about too is that I guarantee that if you come to Mesa and volunteer, you're going to improve the lives of the people who live here. And your life is going to get better too. Like, this is good for everybody.
Right.
So, I think we're onto something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about it. I feel honored, to tell you the truth, that we have an opportunity to do this. One of the things we talk about with our team all the time is that, if we do a good job, then we get the chance to do this again.
Right.
Right. And what a beautiful thing. And I think that this kind of work is, it's not for the faint of heart, but it's also fun. And I think, if you're not enjoying it, then go do something else, right? We get one shot at this life, so make the most of it. And I think that by doing this work too, we remind each other of what is so good in our communities, right? I mean, you work with the young adults who live here, and you're reminded about the hope of being young and having your whole world in front of you.
Right.
And I think that that's such a joy to sit with some of our participants and say, honestly, what do you want? What do you want with your life? And how can we help to support you and giving you opportunity to explore that?
Well, and you're almost creating hope where maybe hope was almost lost, right? Because somebody was homeless or they're on the verge of being homeless, and now you're, making a pizza oven with these young people.
One of our, so our house manager who lives on site, Sheila Piala, is a mental health specialist, mental health professional. She had a necklace on the other day and it said, "Become who you are." Right? So there's a little bit of just remembering, who we all were as kids, and, our core, personality, desires, the things that excite us, the things that we want to spend our time doing. I think, that's our job. Our job here is to help these young folks remember who they are, and then put the opportunities in front of them that allow them to explore that.
So tell us about the tiny homes. They're beautiful. And you said the furniture is nice.
Yeah, they're incredible spaces. They're small, 270 square feet, with a living room, kitchen, bathroom, lofted bedroom, really thoughtfully designed. So they're in kind of a big arc, the courtyard in between, and the way that the arc is structured, you have a view of the mountains from every bedroom. When you move into the home, desk and couch and fridge and fully furnished, bedroom and stocked kitchen, everything that's movable within the unit is yours to keep, right? So you can use that to furnish your first apartment.
Oh, interesting.
Which I think, builds a sense of ownership and pride, and I think is really important. But it goes beyond that, right? We have art from local artists that we set up in kind of a mock art gallery that you can walk through and select art for your home. We have handmade pottery that's on the shelves. We have, there's Bluetooth speakers, and our case manager, Maritza Seha, asks them a bunch of questions before they move in. One of them is, what kind of music are you listening to? Build a Spotify playlist and have their music playing when they're moving into their home. There's a welcome basket put together by local community members with, gift cards to local restaurants and shops and stuff, just to help them get out and explore the community, with a handwritten letter that says, not just like, welcome to your new home, but we're excited to have you here.
That's awesome.
And
I really appreciate that.
What a difference that makes.
That's huge.
When you've been moving around your whole life and you've never really had a home, and you've been maybe seen as a problem or whatever, to come into a space where people are really excited to have you. Like, what a difference that makes. So, the tiny homes themselves are pretty incredible. I mean, they were affordable. They were built off-site, 10 homes built in about 6 weeks. So, a lot of advantages to doing it that way. There are challenges as well, but I think overall we feel really good about it, especially for this population to not be in a congregate living setting. So congregate living, imagining bunch of bunk beds in a single room, or, let's say 8 bunk beds in a 4-bedroom house, right? Or a big, is a much different environment. And one that's safe, right? We're looking at, 20%, 10, 15, 20% of our young adults identify LGBTQ plus, right? Who are experiencing homelessness. So for that kid, for that young person, young adult, it's not safe necessarily to be in a congregate living setting.
Right.
So to have a home where you can walk in and close the door and have your own space is the difference between a young person taking advantage of a resource that's being offered and choosing not to, and sleeping in their car and getting worse.
Interesting.
Right? So what we know for a fact is that young adults don't always take advantage of the resources that are being offered because they're not built for them.
Interesting.
We really tried to take that into account when we designed this space.
And then when you've personalized it with the music and the pottery and the pictures on the wall. They just feel so welcome.
Yeah, and it's their home. So, put art up, right? That's all right. Put holes in the wall. We'll fix it when you move out. We want you to feel at home. And so, a lot of effort put into making that happen.
How can folks get more involved?
Yeah. So in addition to jumping on our website and, plugging in your email and all of that, we're building out a volunteer portal on our website where you can go on, select all the different kinds of things you're interested in, and then we'll reach out to you when those kinds of volunteer opportunities arise. So I think one of our jobs is to help someone find something that lights them up, right? So, we've got a bunch of young folks here. Some of them have incredible passions and others are trying to figure that out, right? So one of the things that I talk a lot about with folks who say like, I want to get involved, what can I do? Well, what are you passionate about? What are you excited about? Come share that, whether that's fishing or hiking or biking or art or gardening or playing music or whatever, those kinds of human connections make a massive difference. And I really believe that if the participants at Mesa discover something that lights them up, it's going to give them a whole lot more, to pursue.
Sure. And that portal folks could find on the Mesa
website. That's right.
What is the website and the other ways that folks can find
Yeah.
it?
So website is www.mesafarm.org. Instagram is at Mesa_farm. Facebook, Mesa Farm. Would love for anyone and everyone to follow us, reach out to us. If you're interested in supporting, we have a community of supporters around the country, right? This is not limited to Ventura County. We are trying to have an influence on the way that this work is being done everywhere. And so we need your help. And we welcome you and hope you join the family.
Well, Dan Parziale, thank you so much for being our guest on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Really
having you at Mesa Farm.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks.
And we want to thank you for tuning in to this On the Road. We want to thank our sponsor, Opus Escrow, and be sure to tune in next time for On the Road.